My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today I want to analyze a video that I came across this week. His name is, actually I don't know his name, but the name that he goes by on the YouTube channel is Alpha M. And I want to do this video because it's obviously very important to a lot of people. He has, 6.86 million subscribers on his YouTube channel. So he's very influential. One of my favorite TV shows is Shark Tank. I actually saw him on Shark Tank. So he's obviously very influential. He's probably making a ton of money, and people believe these things that he says. So I want to go over this video because I watched part of this video already. And honestly, and I'm not going through all of his videos because I just haven't cared enough to do that. But in this particular video, it's worrisome to me because he has the attitude that is actually, in a sense, causing a lot of the problems that men are having these days. Because right off the top, it seems like he's doing a good job of validating a lot of young men and older men of what's going on in their life, but he's not doing a thing in terms of moving them towards a solution-focused mindset. And that's where the problem is. We have the president right now who validates all these people, right? It's all about grievances, but there's not much about self-empowerment there. And so I think he's doing a good job, obviously, with the millions of subscribers that he's got, because a lot of people somehow gravitate towards this and they like what he's saying. You know, as a little bit of an aside, every show that I've done, and I've done interviews with people that work for like the men's rights movement and stuff like that, and whenever I suggest that they become better people, become more educated, these types of things, I lose a whole bunch of subscribers. So I think that's where we're at. So I think he's doing a good job of validating people, but he's not giving them actual reasons or ways to get out of the problem. And I think that in his sense, maybe that's the right thing to do if you want to retain a high level of influence with people. Because if you start giving them ideas of how to do better, for some reason, a lot of men just don't want to do better. So if that didn't turn you off already, let's try to go through this video. I'm going to have trouble here not stopping it 100 times because there's line after line after line that you could tell that he's looking at some data, but he doesn't know how to read it. So let's go over this. We're already 3 minutes into this. Let's see what I can do here. And why does it want to play right now?
So before you get it all twisted and misunderstand what this video is about and what I'm saying, I need to make it abundantly clear. I am not saying that we as men are being oppressed or, oh, woe is us, I can't believe we are. No, I'm not saying that. We're men, and we can handle a lot of shit. And just so happens that we've got to handle the fact that society is kind of leaving us.
Okay, I need to stop this right here because here's where he does a good job, right? He already says, oh, we're not going to whine, we're not going to complain. Basically, men can handle their own stuff. Don't get it twisted, right? But as soon as he says that, then he's going to flip, and now he's going to give you a bunch of reasons and grievances that men have. So he's literally going to do what he said he wasn't going to do.
Behind. And in today's world, in today's woke craziness, men are treated as second-class citizens. All right?
Again, got to stop right there. Okay, so he starts off with saying that the world has left us behind. Now, the world is not some arbitrary object, right? The world is filled with other human beings, and things are happening all the time. So it's not true that the world is leaving men behind. The world doesn't make conscious decisions to leave certain human beings behind. What happens is that the world expects people to be of value, to carry their own weight, to be valuable not just to themselves, but to society, these types of things. And if you opt out of society, the world can seem like it's leaving you behind. But is that true? Or are you just stagnant and not doing anything? Now, not him, because he's a very successful guy, but he's catering to people who are not. The people who are not doing very well, that are men, who are they losing out to? Women. Now, just because men don't want to go to college that doesn't mean that the world's leaving you behind. It means that you're not doing the right things in order to be a better person, to keep up with society. He also says men are being treated like second class citizens. Listen, I'm almost 60 years old. I've been a man for 60 years. I have never felt like the world has treated me like a second class citizen. Now, if you want to be a whiner and a complainer, I could say that there was maybe individual occasions where somebody maybe didn't treat me correctly. That's true. I think we all have that. But as a person walking into a store, down the street, to the gym, to church, I've never felt like, uh-oh, I'm a white heterosexual man. Uh-oh, I got problems. Nobody likes me and nobody thinks I'm of value and everybody thinks I'm a second-class citizen. That's never happened. I've always had the right to vote. I've always had the right to open up a bank account, get a credit card. I've never been a slave. As long as I have the right amount of money, I can buy what I want, right? Just like anybody else. I don't know what he's talking about here. Again, it's really interesting that you have a white man, heterosexual, saying that we're being treated like second-class citizens. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. But then again, I'm not catering to almost 7 million people to get my paycheck. Let's continue.
We've done such a good job of lifting other people up to make sure that everybody has advantages and opportunities like never before. But unfortunately, this has come at a price and a detriment to men. And this isn't just my opinion.
Again, okay, let's stop it right there. He makes this statement that part of the reason why white men, he doesn't say white, but men in general are having problems because we have a woke culture. Let's understand what woke means. It means being awake or conscious. Awake or conscious to what? Awake or conscious to social injustice and discrimination. So how in the world does that stop you from being a productive adult? Because people now are starting to understand that there are people on this planet that are not given the same opportunities as other people. Now, I can speak as a heterosexual white man here because I am one. Just because I am heterosexual and white doesn't mean that I've had all the opportunities in the world either, right? If you come from a rich family, you can basically tread water your whole life and not make a penny extra in savings. You can wait for your parents to die and they give you that $500,000 house and boom, you already have a pretty good investment there or a pretty good chunk of money. This happens all the time. Or what if I went to college and I spent $100,000 on my college education, but the kids or the 18-year-olds that I graduated high school with, they had their college education paid for. So they had a $100,000 head start. So this is what happens. So when we're looking at people that are disadvantaged, you don't have to be disadvantaged today. It could be you were disadvantaged through a couple of generations. And now when we say, okay, things are cool, they're even, not necessarily, because there's tons of people that I know in my life that are sitting on thousands, if not millions of dollars generated through generations before. And so that's something else. Like, so if you start giving people more opportunity and more chances, say to go to school or to get a job, you shouldn't read that as, oh my God, everybody hates men. You know, if you're such a man, you should enjoy capitalism and enjoy competition if that's your thing. So why are you going to complain that more minorities or more women now have opportunities to compete against you? Because if 100 people are looking for a job and 50% of them are not white men, there's a pretty good chance that some of those white men are going to be left out. That's true. But you had the breaks all along. So what are we complaining about here? Like, you say you love capitalism, but you only love capitalism when everything is skewed in your direction. So that's not being a real man. That's being a complainer. Let's move on to see what else he's got to say here.
The data supports it. Men are fucked. Let me explain. Young men are now twice as likely as women to live at home with their parents. 60.
Let me stop there because the data supports it. No, he's reading the data in a certain way. Now, is it true that young men now are twice as more likely to live at home than women? That's true. But what in society is doing that? Is it that when a young woman goes to get a job, they pay her 3 times as much? Is it because when she wants to buy a house, they lower the price by $50,000 because she's a woman? No, none of that's true. What is true is that he's talking about men's choices, but he's validating their experience of making bad decisions, but he's not showing them a way to have a solution focused mindset and fix the problem. Let's go down some of this really quick. Again, if you're going to spend most of your time playing video games and not working, guess what? You're not going to be able to afford much. You're going to be living on your parents' couch until you're 35 years old. There's this big push out there by men, men's rights, incels, and all of this, these YouTube channels, which are basically run by men like Joe Rogan and people like this, which have been super influential in putting Donald Trump into office, because there's a lot of angry young guys, actually a lot of angry middle-aged and old guys too, because they're buying into this garbage because it's an easy thing to do. One of the things they're saying is that education is a complete waste of time. Like, why spend that much money on an education? You got to pay it back. Well, here's the reason. This is the thing you really need to know. If you have a bachelor's degree, which is 4 years, on average, a person who has a bachelor's degree compared to a person who has only a high school diploma, over a period of a lifetime, you will make $1.2 million more with a degree. You don't need to know much more than that. So stop listening to the Joe Rogans and all these other idiots that keep telling you, yeah, we're men, so let's just get a club together, the He-Man Woman Haters Club, to hate everybody in the world, except to say, listen, we should do the things that put us in a better position to make money. If you don't want to go to college, fine, but get a trade, get a certification, get a skill, do something. Stop sitting on your parents' couch, masturbating whenever they leave the house because they're working, and then you're playing video games and all this stuff. The reason why you're still sitting at home on your parents' couch compared to women is because they don't spend all their time playing with themselves. They're actually doing things to better themselves in this world. They're not smoking marijuana all day. If you want to say the data supports it, look up the data that supports that most young boys and men are quitting on themselves. They're not quitting on society, because society, like you said, will keep moving forward, and they will leave you behind because there's other people who actually do want to have a good, productive life. And once again, he is talking towards the men and trying to impress them so they can subscribe and just keep listening to this guy and go, yeah, man, you got it. He should be telling them that the reason why they're still sitting at home instead of buying houses like the women are at their age is because they're not doing the work. It's completely dependent upon their poor choices. Let's see what else he's got to say.
50% of the homeless population in the U.S., men. 90% of the prison population, men. For the first time in the past 50 years, the male life expectancy rate is actually dropping. Men are...
Okay, he's talking too fast here because I have to keep stopping this. So let's go over this again of what he said. By the way, he's trying to be super manly. Like, listen, he says on his page that he was a bodybuilder. I guess so. I can't really tell from looking at him. But anyway, let's move on from that. So 90% of the prison population is men. That's true. That's not attacking men in the year 2024. Again, it's December, so it's almost 2025. That's been a statistic that's been there since the beginning of time. That's nothing new. That hasn't changed. So again, to use that as a data point to say that men's issues are being ignored, and actually, I should read you the title. It says, Why Men's Issues Are Being Ignored by Society. And then it has in parentheses, they hate us. So again, it's that whiny baby garbage that is not going to be successful. For him, it's successful because he can get his subscribers, but it's not successful if you want to do better in life. Yes, it's true that most of the people in prison are men. But it's also true that men tend to be more violent in society. Now, in personal relationships, yeah, you can find the information that says that women are actually pretty verbally and physically violent in relationships. That's true. But out in the real world, it's not the women that are beating people up in the street. It's not the women that are holding up liquor stores and things like this. It's the men. So what do you think should happen? Because a lot of these people like him that talk, they identify as conservative. So if you're conservative and you want to be Mr. Law and Order, so what are you talking about right now? Are we saying that there shouldn't be that many men in prison, even though they're the ones committing the crimes? Because if you believe in law and order, you should be putting more of them in jail. I say I'm liberal. I think you should get to them earlier. We should move towards education and things like this, and so they won't have to be doing stupid things. But I'm just me here. What's the other part of this that he said that's ridiculous? He said that male life expectancy, the rate is dropping. That's true. It's dropped about a year from 2020. But here's the thing that he doesn't tell you, as he says he has the data to support it. Women's life expectancy also went down a little bit too since 2020. So it's by omission that he's lying to you. Why is male life expectancy dropping? Well, number one, again, it's starting from 2020. What do you think it is? Number one is COVID. That was the problem. That's not that society hates men. Here's how men hate themselves. Because the reason why more men died than women during COVID is because they tend to be whatever they want to say. Again, most of them are conservative because over 2/3 of the people who died during COVID-19 pandemic were conservative men. Why was that? It's because they don't believe in education and science for the most part. They didn't believe in wearing masks and they didn't believe in the vaccine. So again, it's not society hating you, it's you being stupid. And again, pushing that material that you don't need a vaccine and vaccines are bad. So don't take the vaccine, and that's why a lot of men died, and that's why the life expectancy is going down. But what else could it also be? On the list is the opioid epidemic. Again, more men are shooting up heroin and getting into opioids, which is really interesting because they're afraid to take a vaccine that would help them, but they have no problem shooting heroin. So when we look at this, again, men are killing themselves. They're doing more drinking, they're doing more smoking, they are 4 times more likely to commit suicide. And again, you can give a million reasons why, but you have to still say suicide by definition means that they're doing it to themselves. That's not society hating you. That's you doing it. Also, reckless behavior in general, which men tend to do a lot more than women do. And also, men tend not to seek medical care. They don't get regular checkups. They have no idea if they're sick or not. If there's something brewing inside, maybe a heart problem or a lung problem that they don't know about, and they wait until it's too late. Or when they do get sick, they think they can tough it out, and then they make some excuse and say, well, society in general doesn't like men to have feelings or care. Okay, so you don't go to a doctor because you think that some arbitrary thing in general society says that you're not allowed to care about yourself?
Twice as likely to struggle with opioid or alcohol addiction. And the male suicide rate is 3.5 times higher than women.
True.
Guys, there is a problem, and it's only getting worse. Now, the question is why, and what can we do about it? So the first thing that I think is going on is cultural pressures for us guys to man up, right? To be men. We are encouraged from a very young age to be resilient, to be tough, to be stoic. Don't let them see you cry. And I think about my YouTube videos, right? The ones that I cry on camera, I made a decision to show that. And the reason was because I felt like there was a need for just regular guys to show that it's okay to show and express emotion. When I look at the comments and I see how many people are telling me that I'm not alpha or that I'm beta or that real men don't cry or I must be gay.
Let me stop you there. This is typical from guys, and I kind of agree with part of this. It is true that as a man, you're supposed to be strong and tough and maybe not cry, these types of things. But let's put it in its correct place, though. If you were to be more emotional about things all the time and not move to positive action, you'll never get anything done. You'll never be a successful person. So somewhere in there is a middle ground. Me, as a licensed marriage and family therapist, I go over this all the time. There is no problem with processing feelings and emotions. It needs to be done. However, if you're having a feeling about something, that should not dictate whether what you do is, in other words, what you need to do is what you need to do. If that's the correct thing, then you need to take that correct decision and move forward with it. If you have a negative feeling about it, if you're scared about it, if you are in any way afraid, it doesn't matter. You have to do the right move. So it's taking this in a wrong direction to say that men are not allowed to have feelings. More correctly said is that we're not allowed to base our decisions on only our feelings. When it comes to things that are very important, you have to do what's right. Can I give you an example of this? For example, yes, I have a tremendous amount of feeling inside me when one of my dogs is sick and they're nearing that end of life situation. And I'm allowed to feel. I feel it 24 hours a day. But my decision making is based on what needs to be done or what I feel needs to be done at that time. It's the same thing if I wake up in the morning and I'm tired and I go, well, I need a mental health day. No, because you take a lot of mental health days because you don't feel right, you're just not into it that day, so you decide not to go to work. You're going to have to deal with a lot of other mental health issues when you're basically homeless, right? Or you can never get up in the business, you never get a raise or anything. You never get a promotion because you let your brain, your emotions get in the way of making correct decisions. Nobody wants to be around a person that is all emotional all the time. And this includes women too, by the way. Nobody wants an emotional woman that's just completely filled with emotions and doesn't know how to make decisions. So I hear what he's saying, but he's giving too much weight to that because it's not really true. Let's continue.
Whatever it is, it makes me realize that there is still a huge problem. And the problem stems from us men not being encouraged to express ourselves or to be in touch with our emotion. The second reason...
Again, wrong. You are allowed to be in touch with your emotion. I mean, if you look at some of the best poets that ever lived, the best musicians that ever lived, they know how to express. You're allowed to express. I've never been around a woman that wants to be around a guy who's a flat out robot. Like, I've never seen that, and I don't think I ever will. Women enjoy men who are both. That you can do the job when you need to do it, but you're also not a psychopath. You also have a lot of feelings and emotions, and you feel fear, but you act anyway when it's necessary. This guy, I don't think he knows what he's talking about.
Why I feel like men's issues are ignored, and this is going to probably piss some of you off, but whatever, fuck it, is the whole...
Let me just stop here too, because I want to go over a couple of things. When you're talking about cultural pressure too, you got to realize it's always been that way. And when you're looking at the generation like today, or even through like the millennials, overall, the generations before were happier and they did better and they had less mental health disorders. So part of the problem is not that we're not allowing men to have emotions. It's that we're coddling them too much. That's where the problem is. And again, there's a middle ground. So let's continue right here.
LGBTQ plus, racial equality, women's rights movements. And I'm not saying, and don't get it twisted, I'm not saying that that's bad or that it shouldn't happen. But because
you are
we're
saying
doing such a good job and we're focusing on lifting these groups and bringing them forward, it's basically left a lot to be desired in terms of thinking about men, their mental issues, workplace issues, the feelings of isolationism. We just don't really care about them. Like, they've been good, like they've had an advantage, so let's just help these people. Let's focus on them. Let's make sure they are feeling good and have all the opportunities. The other thing you just have to understand is that,
Real quick, no, that's not the problem, right? So we're looking at marginalized communities and saying that they should have all the opportunities. I don't think anybody said that. I think what people are saying is, listen, who cares if somebody's gay or straight or trans, right? Just leave them alone, okay? Get them off of your list of people to vilify and make fun of, right? Just stop doing that. That's basically all a liberal would ask you to do, all right? They're not asking for special rights. They're just asking for the right to be a normal human being. So the thought that we should be more conscious about people affects his life. How is that? So in my opinion, when you lift somebody up in society, we all get lifted. As a matter of fact, right up here on my wall, and I have this every day of my life in my office, I've got a quote, and it says, "Whatever you do to the weakest of my brothers and sisters, you do to me." And that's because I feel like I should be part of society who is trying to pick people up. I don't want people being smashed to the ground and then say, okay, it's cool, it's good for me. You know, he has a problem with people being lifted or being treated normal because somehow it's going to be competition. Not so much for him, again, because he's doing really well, but it's competition for his subscribers that are looking for an easy way out. Let's continue.
Life and society and opportunity is not a zero-sum game, right? It's not either men win and everybody else loses, or everybody else wins and men lose. It shouldn't be like that.
No, it
You've
shouldn't.
got to think of it more holistically. You can help everybody, but everybody includes this other gender. And when you don't do that, it basically is leaving a whole segment of the population feeling isolated and really like nobody gives a shit about us anymore. And then you want to make it worse? Let's start this whole toxic masculinity thing. Oh, that's really great for our mental health. That's really great.
Hold it. So on one part of there, he starts to sound like he makes sense. So we have to think about it holistically. Unfortunately, he's not. So when he's going to get into this toxic masculinity, that we're saying that it's bad. It's not that being masculine is bad. I'm probably the most masculine guy you would ever know, and people around me, they would never question my masculinity. I'm always whatever you want to call it in the crowd. There's not one person that would question me. And by the way, when you talk about alpha like he does and calls his program alpha, that's a problem. Throughout my whole life, I've been captains of football teams. I've been on the wrestling team. I've done UFC or mixed martial arts fighting. I've won 1 million bodybuilding shows. Never once have I ever used the word I'm an alpha today. Never. So if you're using the word, you're not. So what you're doing is, again, we're doing this YouTube creation type of thing where we're trying to create content, but you're not actually living it. And this is the problem with a lot of young guys. They're watching content like this, but they're not going out to the field to actually do the work. They don't know how to talk to girls. They don't know how to engage a woman in a conversation. They don't know how to be rejected. They don't know how to do any of these things. So they watch videos like this and they think it's the world's fault. Real quick on this toxic masculinity. Again, if you're a guy and you refuse to go to the doctor, that's pretty toxic. If you're a guy and you think that it's smart to be uneducated, like if you look at the Donald Trump type people in the world and go, yeah, he's name calling people and he's bullying people, and you think that that's a good thing, you think he treats women right, you think because he's a felon or an adjudicated rapist that that's okay and it's cool, that is toxic masculinity. You are going up the wrong tree. That's not masculine. That's something else. And I guess you could call it toxic masculinity because that's where a lot of these things are going. What wouldn't be toxic and being masculine is to have a solution-focused mindset and say, listen, I'm going to be worth something in this world. Go and get yourself an education. Start reading books. Do something. But stop ripping on gay people and trans people and thinking that somehow you're not toxic. You are. And I don't care if you think you're a man or not. You can call it toxic masculinity. It doesn't matter. Any human being that would act like that, you are not a good person at this particular time. Let's continue.
Great for us dudes feeling good about ourselves. No, it basically was so front-facing because the media is so twisted and social media is also twisted that we see this and we're like, wait a second. Toxic? I'm not toxic. I'm just trying to get a piece of ass. I'm just trying.
Let me say this, okay? So through this video, and I get that things have changed a lot, right? People can curse all they want and it makes it sound tougher and stronger and masculine. Listen, I wasn't raised like that, but that's a whole other thing. There's a time and place for things. But again, he's trying to use this. In the same sentence, he's saying, well, I'm not toxic. I'm just trying to get a piece of ass. Well, okay, but how many good, decent, caring women out there want to be spoken to like that? That's all I'm trying to do. I'm gathering that if you talk like that and you have almost 7 million subscribers and you're talking to young men trying to be a leader, what do you think I'm going to think about that? That's not being a correct gentleman. Nothing at all. Okay, and it doesn't make me less of a gentleman because I would prefer to speak in a more respectful manner. Because again, he says he does bodybuilding. Listen, I could be, from the pictures that I saw and looking at this video, and then there was some other picture that he had that I looked up. Listen, I could have beaten him in a bodybuilding contest when I was 12 years old. Okay, so there's nothing really masculine going on here. And the way he's talking about these things, I really would question if I'm not saying he's not a man, but I would question the fact that, is he the type of man that he's trying to say he is? And there's not a chance.
Trying to make a buck. I'm just trying to not feel bad about myself, and I'm trying to not feel isolated. Toxic?
If you don't want to feel bad about yourself, it's not other people that are doing that. It's how you feel about yourself. It's like saying somebody doesn't like my hoodie. It's not going to make me feel bad about myself. I actually took my hard-earned money and spent money on this hoodie, and so I like it. So you can't make me feel bad about my decisions. Only I can do that. That's being a man. What he's saying right here is unmanly. Definitely not masculine. Let's continue.
Screw that. What's that? You need somebody to dig ditches? You need somebody to go to war? You need somebody to do the heavy lifting? Oh, now we're okay? Which brings me to another reason why our issues are ignored. Men are viewed as disposable to a large extent. Again, do not get it twisted. I'm not saying woe is us as dudes.
But you
I'm
are.
simply saying you got to open your eyes, right? When there's something going on, when there's a crisis, who's going to go? Men, right? It's women and children first. This is the mentality, and I'm not saying that it's wrong. Once again, I am not saying that poor us dudes.
But you are.
These types of ideas do permeate to the modern day, right? When something's going on, everybody else takes a precedent. We need to help everybody else. Men, they'll be all right because they're always all right. And if they're not, well, that's okay too. So like I mentioned before, I've used therapy many times in my life. And really the reason is pretty simple. It's to help me deal with
I'm going to cut that right there because then he goes into this, I don't know what it is, like a 4 or 5 minute commercial that he puts in here for some company. What else can I add to this? It's just, he's trying to say that don't get it twisted, but yet he's trying to say he's not complaining, but he is. Let me see if I could find where he's actually talking about something other than this commercial that's coming up here.
You know, the thing that I've come to realize after being on this earth for 48 years, yes, I'm old, is that there is no one-size solution. And unfortunately, even though like the old men of yesterday, like our grandfathers, you know, were awesome, they also were dealing with what they were dealt. And that is not being able to talk about or encouraged to talk about or share. They just had to be tough. They had to go to work. They had to come home. They didn't talk about anything. They just made sure that their family was taken care of because that's what you were expected to do. Guys, things have changed. Our world is changed. It's crazy, unfortunately. And if we don't do a better job basically connecting with one another and being okay sharing and expressing our experiences and the things that we're dealing with, we are going to literally self-destruct. It is not by accident that we have become so emotionally distraught, not to mention so addicted to so many things. You think it's a coincidence that we're addicted to porn or technology or substances that we shouldn't be using, right, as much of? But it's a coping mechanism. It's something that we do because it feels good, right? Because a lot of things that we're taught, a lot of things that we're told doesn't feel good. You know, the fact that we look at social media and we see all these dudes that we think we should idolize or emulate that have all this money, have all these cars, have all these like spicy ass women, guys like Dan Bilzerian. That is not what a man looks like.
All right, I'm going to end it here. Let me just put in a couple of last thoughts because this show's been kind of long. He talks about how men are disposable in society. I think, again, if we show a little bit of empathy here, I think a lot of women also feel disposable. I mean, they're the ones who are supposed to be the baby machines for a lot of these conservative type of guys. We could talk about that. We could talk about how women tend to be sex objects and nothing more in a lot of people's eyes. We can talk about how men get older, and I'm actually a recipient to this, so I'm not complaining too much. But as a man gets older, we tend to have more power. We tend to have more money, more experience, and we have more things. And so society looks at us and says, hey, you know, you got it going on. And you actually can get more attention when you're 60 years old than you can when you're 20. And that's, I'm a recipient of that, so that's a good thing. However, when we say that people are disposable, I would look at women. I mean, how many 60-year-old women are going to feel this thing that they just don't get paid attention to anymore? Because people want to look at young 20, 25-year-old women and stuff like that. I've talked to plenty of women, and they do feel that they're getting smaller in life, they're getting less attention. And again, because they're disposable, they passed over a certain age and therefore they're not that important in this world. Now, I'm not saying that as me saying that they're not important. I'm just saying in society in general that you could, if you weren't so pent up like this guy is about trying to rile up his subscribers, and you looked at it down the center, again, like he said, more holistic down the center, what you would say is that women also feel like when they get older that they are not worth things anymore. Society puts them off to pasture, that they're disposable. So the fact that he doesn't understand that is very disturbing. He says a couple of other things here that are ridiculous. The show's been 36 minutes long. I got a lot of other stuff to do today. So I'm just going to end it at that. Maybe I'll look at some of his other shows and see if I can address some of those, because I would imagine that there's a ton of mistakes he's making in here. But then again, I have I don't know what I have, 5,000 subscribers, something like that, and he has like 6 million. So in that sense, he's doing really good. But see, this is another thing that's actually toxic in society today that he actually is benefiting from, is that you don't have to do good in society anymore in certain situations. All you have to do is make people feel a little bit better. Just don't give them solutions, because the solutions are always difficult and there's a lot of work behind that. And so it just rile people up and make them angry. That's what our president does, right? Like, just make a bunch of poor people feel like they're rich, and how do they feel rich? Well, not by giving them money. It's just that they get to make fun of other people. And so they get the anger out on somebody, and it makes them feel a little bit stronger, I guess. Anyway, my name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.